Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Here are the top stories of the news. Gunman kills 3 police personnel in Ihiala local government area of Anambra State. Senator Emmanuel Bochua re-emerges as the Taraba State APC governorship candidate. On the foreign scene, rescuers rescue 15-year-old girl at Turkish city of Karamaras. Good afternoon and welcome to Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Day, Ido. SP Ikenga stated that at about 2:40 p.m. yesterday, police officers attached to Ihiala Area Command responded to a distress call along Isheke Road, Ihiala, and recovered 3 bodies of fatally wounded policemen. The spokesman said the deceased policemen were attached to the Explosive Ordnance Department EOD of the Delta State Police Command. According to him, the trio were on assignment en route to Abia when they were attacked in Ihiala area. He said efforts are currently on track to take the gunman. And to political matters, Senator Emmanuel Bochua has won the All Progressive Congress APC rerun primary ahead of the March 11th governorship election. He polled 778 votes to defeat Senator Yusuf, who polled 5 votes out of the 796 accredited delegates. 2 federal high courts in Jalingo and Abuja had at various times nullified the APC governorship primary election and ordered for a fresh primary within 14 days. Mr. Bochua was, however, reinstated as the party's candidate in the state by the Court of Appeal in Yola, but the decision of the appellate court was dismissed by the Supreme Court. Ahead of the presidential election, the presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, NPP, Rabiu Kwankwaso, says many of his supporters are not on social media, faulting polls predicting the presidential elections. Many polls have been released ahead of the elections, with majority of them predicting victory for the Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi. But Mr. Kwankwaso, in a news chart, dismissed such projections, stating that they don't represent the realities on the ground. He noted that the polls are via the telephone, which over 90% of his supporters don't even know about.
Go to market in Kano, go to even market in Sabo Ibadan, go to market in rivers, go to roads and so on and ask people. You cannot just go rely and take very small sample. If you are talking of over 200 million people, you just take a couple of thousands and say this is the opinion of Nigerians. Look, this was being sponsored mainly to get donations, because now the impression they are giving is all of us are not even the rest. The winner is already being predicted, and this is very dangerous. You see, get money, put these traps on the ground, and create problems once an election is announced.
The Rivers State government has disputed claims that the state governor, Nyesom Wike, was responsible for an attack on the State Director General of the People's Democratic Party Presidential Campaign Council, Abiye Sekibo. The State Commissioner for Information, Chris Feinbone, told newsmen yesterday that the governor had no reason to be involved in the said attack. Mr. Feinbone stated that it is the place of the police, whom the Director General claimed shot at him, to clarify the issue, urging the DG to help the police unravel the motive and the person behind the attack. The PDP PCC Director General, Abiye Sekibo, had earlier yesterday said he escaped assassination by the Whiskers at midnight. He disclosed that gunmen dressed in police uniform opened fire on his bulletproof vehicle at the Rainbow Town in Port Harcourt, where he went to inspect the venue of a proposed presidential rally of the party. And still in Rivers State, the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, says the National Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Iyorchia Ayu, indulged in an unpardonable height of anti-party when he campaigned against the party in Kano State. Governor Wike made the accusation at the Rivers State Campaign Council for LMA local government at Olode Town, LMA, yesterday. He revealed that when Mr. Ayu said PDP has brought us shame, the embattled chairman was speaking out of the abundance of his heart, even though he may want to defend it as a slave. The governor stated that if there is any section of the party that has brought shame to the country, it is the national headquarters under Mr. Ayu's leadership and not the state chapter of the party. Mr. Wike also criticized the poor implementation of the Naira redesign policy and the socio-economic hardship that it has caused Nigerians.
Listen. See what they're saying. Listen.
PDP has brought us shame and will not continue to retain them in power.
You hear what our chairman said?
Yes, so
But PDP has brought shame and they will not allow PDP to be in power.
yes, so
Is that a good chairman?
bad chairman,
Is that not anti-party?
anti-party,
Is the chairman not in anti-party?
anti-party.
Out of the abundance of heart,
The man speaker, koro.
out of the abundance of what?
The
man does what?
Speakers.
But for us in River State, our own party is a good party.
Yes, so
Our own party is a party that has done River State well.
yes,
And we must vote our National Assembly, our governorship, our House of Assembly as far as PDP is
concern.
So it is their own party that has brought shame to them. Our own party, PDP River State, has never.
A former Enugu State Governor, Chimaroke Nnamani, has faulted his expulsion from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, describing it as null. The PDP National Working Committee, NWC, yesterday expelled him and others from the party, citing anti-party activities. But hours after the move, the former governor said the NWC lacks the powers to take such a decision. He quoted Articles 57, subsection 7 and 59, subsection 3 of the PDP constitution to fault his expulsion from the party. The party had, in a statement by the National Publicity Secretary, Debo Ologunagba, said it expelled the former governor due to anti-party activities. Others expelled from the party include Ajijola Oladimeji from Ekiti Central, Olayinka Olalere, Ekiti Central 2, Akerele Oluyinka, Ekiti North, and Emiola Jennifer from Ekiti South 2. And in Sokoto State, the state governor Aminu Tambuwal says the People's Democratic Party, PDP, remains the only answer to Nigeria's challenges. Governor Tambuwal, who made the declaration at the PDP's campaign rally in Goronyo local government area of the state, said the party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, was fully set to face the battle. He said Mr. Atiku's message to the people of the area is centered on tackling security challenges, tapping the full potential of Goronyo Dam and irrigation scheme, wealth creation through empowerment and employment opportunities. The governor, who was accompanied to the podium by his deputy, Manio Dania, said that PDP will continue to sustain its issue-based campaign across the country. Mr. Tambuwal appreciated the people of Sokoto State for their support and loyalty to the party and its administration, while calling on them to vote for all the party's candidates to get more dividends. Members of the Council of State have asked the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN Governor Gordon Emefiele, to make new Naira notes available or recirculate old notes to ease the sufferings of Nigerians. This follows the Council of State meeting chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa yesterday to address the current upheaval regarding the Naira redesign and the currency swap. Members of the Council of State, however, expressed support for the Naira redesign policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. Governor of Taraba State, Dairos Ishaku, Governor of Lagos, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, said although the Council of State backed the CBN policy, the members expressed concern about the implementation. Former heads of state, Yakubu Gowon and Abdul Salami Abubakar, were in attendance, while former President Goodluck Jonathan was also present. Earlier yesterday, the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, said the federal government will obey the Supreme Court order restraining the CBN from banning the use of the old Naira note from February 10th. Meanwhile, as the back and forth over the deadline of the Central Bank of Nigeria's cash swap policy continues, Nigerians have expressed confusion as to the position of the federal government and the CBN on the exporter order given by the Supreme Court. This is amidst increasing difficulty in getting both old and new notes. Emmanuel Ujwadugele has the rest of the story.
A politician with that policy say nonsense. Yeah. Say yes. Yes. Any politician with that policy say nonsense. Yes. It's a nonsense.
Rubbish. Totally rubbish.
Confusion, apprehension, anger. This is what the average Nigerian feels at the moment. From sleeping at automated teller machines ATMs to traveling tens of kilometers without access to their own hard-earned money, residents of Osun State seem to be boiling over.
Ẹlòmíín wà bank látàná báyìí tó sùn tó jẹ́ pé láti bí ìjọ́ mẹ́ta ẹlòmíín sùn ká tún gbọ́ pé a ní bóyá bí 20 or 20 something banks ní Òṣogbo ká wá gbọ́ pé yọkan pé ló ń dispense.
Ẹ wo ìnira yẹn ti pọ̀jù fún wa k'Ọlọ́run kó ṣàánú wa ni wàláhì ezim àti tó fọ́ ni mo ti dé bí báyìí lé ní láti ọjọ́ Monday mi ti rí 10,000 naira gbà ọmọ yìí gan wá padà gbé bá mi ní bí báyìí ní bá ṣe ń jí kúrò lé nìyẹn.
The frustration is further compounded by the uncertainty around the ex-parte order of the Supreme Court regarding the cash swap deadline and last night's countdown by the Central Bank of Nigeria despite that order. This confusion is not lost on customers like Mr. Oluwatosin Adesina and Sunday Oluwafemi.
We are confused. Rather, from what the policy has stated that the new naira note should be deposited in the bank, and the extension of the new naira loan to February 10, which is today, the deadline. And looking at the situation of things now, we don't know. Maybe the stand of the Supreme Court will still come to pass, to stand on the ground, especially on what is happening now.
We are suffering. People have been queued on this ATM since 5 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the night. People are not sleeping at home. They are suffering. You can see the queue. You can see many people in the ATM. People, okay, now we go into the bank. We can only withdraw 3,000 naira. In this economy of the situation in Nigeria, how can we take 3,000 naira? Even in this situation now, how can you take 3,000 naira to buy anything in this country?
With babies crying in their arms, some women brave the scorching sun just to get their money. For the elderly who cannot stand on queues, the hot ground of bank premises is where they find some sort of uncomfortable comfort. Other residents like Mrs. Ifunaya Ogwinyande, who have spent hours and days in banking halls and ATMs, believe strongly that the government is insensitive to their plight.
People are suffering. People are suffering. As you can see, our children at home. We do not see people are suffering. Look at us. Look at all inside. All the accountants are inside bank with AC, and we've been here from Monday to night. We did not see a kobo.
Another resident, Ali Bak, wants decisive actions, including an address by the president.
Urgent step should be done now. Now, at this time, president has to speak to the nation.
For point-of-sale POS operators like Mrs. Zainab Ali, the lack of clarity coupled with the unavailability of cash has caused a halt in business.
We are confused about either the old note is ended or not. We are confused. But see, we are not collecting any old note for now because the CBN does not say anything about it. So we are not collecting it.
Legal practitioner Bukola Onifade attempts to clear up the apparent confusion. First, he says the state governments that instituted the suit against the federal government may have made a fundamental error.
It's a fundamental issue, which I don't want to preempt the decision of the court. I don't know what the court is going to say, but it's a fundamental issue which the court will look at. Whether they can even sustain the suit. That is the main suit. So don't be carried away with an ex parte order when there is still some issue of law to be trashed out in the main case before the court.
Mr. Onifade then says when the substantive suit is heard by the Supreme Court, the outcome may yet be unpopular with the average Nigerian.
To me, it's going to be very, very difficult for the Attorney General of Federation or whoever that want to enforce that judgment to enforce it against the Central Bank of Nigeria. For the two reasons I've given, they are independent, they have their autonomy, they are independent organization, and they are their party to the suit.
Not only is there poor information on the intricacies of the cash swap deadline, the unavailability of cash is crippling businesses, stifling households, and whipping up strong sentiments in ordinary citizens. However, at the end of Council of State meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, it has been resolved that the Central Bank of Nigeria makes new Naira note available or recirculate old Naira note to ease the suffering of Nigerians who now wait to see the import of this resolution. Emmanuel Ujadigele, Western Spring Television News.
You're watching Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist who gave his all for the elimination of what has been described as the world's most vicious rule of the unjust and man's inhumanity against man. He was born July 18, 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa. Educated and trained as a successful legal practitioner, he took up the gauntlet of a human activist against segregation by the minority white supremacist in South Africa. At the climax of his trial for treason, orchestrated by the minority South African government, the great crusader for democratic equality was prepared to pay the supreme sacrifice to establish majority rule in his native land. He told white jurists that if achieving freedom for his people was worth his life, he was prepared to die. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in Robben Island, described as the most notorious prison in the world. It was from this same prison that he came out as a free man to assume office as South Africa's first black president in 1994. Western Spring Television identifies Nelson Mandela as a watershed character in history.
Thank you for staying with us. You're welcome back. Zamfara State Governor Bello Matawale has instructed security agents to arrest anybody who refuses to recognize and accept old Naira notes as legal tender in the state. Mr. Matawale gave the directive at a swearing-in ceremony of the new High Court judges and special advisors held at the Government House, Gusau, yesterday. He said the redesigning of the currency was ill-timed and wrongly implemented, therefore directing that anyone who refuses to accept the old 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira notes in the state should be arrested. He said the old currency notes remain legal tender until the final verdict of the case instituted against the Central Bank of Nigeria and the federal government by Kaduna, Kogi, and Zamfara State. Meanwhile, the Kano State government has filed a suit against the federal government at the Supreme Court in respect of the Naira redesign policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. In this suit, the Kano State is asking the Apex Court to declare that President Muhammadu Buhari cannot unilaterally direct the CBN to recall the old 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira banknotes without recourse to the Federal Executive Council and National Economic Council. The Kano government is praying a mandatory order seeking a reversal of the federal government policy to recall the 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira notes from circulation due to the policy affecting the economic well-being of over 20 million Kano citizens. Similarly, the Ondo State government filed a suit against the federal government at the Supreme Court over the CBN's directive on limitation of cash withdrawals from banks. News outside Nigeria, British and German rescuers have found and pulled a 15-year-old girl in the devastated Turkish city of Kahramanmaraş. More than 24,000 people are now known to have died after Monday's earthquake in southern Turkey and northern Syria. Syrian state media says Damascus has now given permission for international aid to be sent to earthquake victims in rebel-held areas across government lines. Currently, there is only one open crossing from Turkey to Syria, through which 2 UN convoys have so far been able to enter rebel-held areas in Syria alone. It is feared up to 5.3 million may have been made homeless. And in the United States, President Joe Biden ordered a fighter jet to shoot down an unidentified high-altitude object off Alaska yesterday. White House spokesman John Kirby said the unmanned object was the size of a small car and posed a reasonable threat to civilian aviation. Mr. Kirby said the object's purpose and origin was unclear. It comes a week after the American military destroyed a Chinese balloon over U.S. territorial waters.
So I can confirm that the Department of Defense was tracking a high-altitude object over Alaska airspace in the last 24 hours. The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. Out of an abundance of caution and at the recommendation of the Pentagon, President Biden ordered the military to down the object. And they did. And it came inside our territorial waters. Those waters right now are frozen, but inside territorial airspace and over territorial waters. Fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command took down the object within the last hour.
And elsewhere, the mayor of Canadian city Toronto has resigned unexpectedly after admitting to a relationship with a former staff member. John Tory's announcement came shortly after the Toronto Star newspaper reported he had an affair with a 31-year-old woman whom he did not name. He said the affair started during the COVID-19 pandemic and was ended mutually by consent this year. The 68-year-old called the relationship a serious error in judgment.
Matter. During the pandemic, I developed a relationship with an employee in my office in a way that did not meet the standards to which I hold myself as mayor and as a family man. The relationship ended by mutual consent earlier this year. During the course of our relationship some time ago, the employee decided to pursue employment outside City Hall and secured a job elsewhere. I recognize that permitting this relationship to develop was a serious error in judgment on my part. It came at a time when Barb, my wife of 40-plus years, and I were enduring many lengthy periods apart while I carried out my responsibilities during the pandemic. As a result, I've decided that I will step down as mayor so that I can take the time to reflect on my mistakes.
And welcome to sports. Canada captain Christine Sinclair says the national women's team will go on strike over pay equity concerns and a lack of funding that they believe will compromise their performances. The players released a joint statement condemning Canada's soccer continued inability to support its national teams. The players said they are outraged and deeply concerned by funding cuts at the national body. The next Women's World Cup takes place from 20th July to 20th August in Australia and New Zealand. Canada is sixth in the world ranking and won Olympic gold in 2021. AC Milan ended a 7-game winless run as Oliver Giroud's goal gave them a home Serie A victory over Torino. Giroud scored a glancing header from Theo Hernandez Cruz from the left. Hernandez had a great opportunity to score a second for Milan, but dragged a shot wide from Rafael Leo's pass following a quick counter-attack. The reigning Italian champions named 41-year-old striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who had knee surgery last summer, among their substitutes for the first time this season. And in the world of entertainment, rapper AKA has been shot dead outside a restaurant in South Africa. AKA was gunned down in a drive-by shooting along Florida Road in Durban last night. The rapper was meant to celebrate his birthday at the Yogo nightclub located in Stamford Hill. It is understood that some persons in two cars shot at the rapper outside a Wish restaurant. Reacting via the deceased social handles, his family said they were looking to the police for the details of his murder. Before we end the news, here is a recap of our top stories. The Anambra State Police Command has confirmed the killing of 3 personnel in Ihiala local government area of the state by gunmen. Senator Emmanuel Botwa has won the All Progressive Congress APC rerun primary ahead of the March 11 governorship election. On the foreign scene, British and German rescuers have found and pulled to safety a 15-year-old girl in the devastated Takramaras. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. That ends Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. I am Tunde Ido. Good afternoon.